You are about to witness a global movement. The medical system has failed us. Pharmaceuticals are designed to make us sick, weak, dependent. Not anymore. This is the Medicine Girl podcast with renowned healing expert and registered nurse Robin Stebbins. Every week, we shine the light on new ways to heal your body from the root, ignite your inner healer, and tap into your divine wisdom. Begin to live harmoniously with your mind, body, and spirit. You are stronger than you think, braver than you realize. Now is the time to wake up and start living healthier, wealthier, and laugh out loud happier. And here we go.
Hello, and welcome to the Medicine Girl podcast. It's me, your host, Robin Stebbins. And today, I hope I pronounced her name right, Marije Berkelaar from the Netherlands. Best interview I hope to do. I'm just so excited about this topic and the heart and the soul behind it. So, Marije, I'd like you to introduce yourself and kind of take people through that story of the bravery and the courage that you walked away from a medical system and a medical degree.
Thanks. That was a lovely introduction. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
So my name is Marije Berkelaar and I'm a doctor from the Netherlands, actually a general practitioner. And so my story is that before Corona happened, I started to get nauseous from prescribing medication. That was a sign for me like, okay, we got to change things. So I kind of took a little bit of distance from the medical work. I was still financially dependent on that system. So I just continued doing night shifts in the first aid clinic. And then Corona happened. And from the beginning, I basically watched it and I've seen I see a big area of light here.
Yeah. That's pretty though.
You like it?
I do.
Okay, let's leave it that way. So from the beginning, I was already seeing why are we perpetuating so much fear? And why are we basically scaring the people so much? I mean, it seemed scary in the beginning, but the amount of fear-based propaganda, is what I call it now, was huge. And in my opinion, was completely not aligned with the nature of the disease, with the nature and the impact of the disease. So again, I spoke out online hey guys, let's stay awake. Let's not go and act from a place of fear, but let's act from a place of love and health instead of, putting mouth masks on. Let's be healthy.
Yes.
What happened is that some people that are against this opinion, they started to call the government institutes and whatnot, and they were calling this the place where I did the night shift still. And even though I have a 100% good record of work, they were gonna decide whether or not I could continue to work there. And just because of my expressions on social media. So that's when I decided to definitely quit the whole system. And so I think that's the brave and courageous, what people tell me, part of the story is.
And that's similar to my story. I'm a registered nurse. I didn't walk away from the system, but I've been in the healthcare field for 30 years as a psychiatric technician. And from the beginning, I saw these prescription medications, especially psychotropics at the time, were so toxic and damaging and not really helping. And I went into the healing arts to instigate wellness, to ignite the inner healer, to see people get better. And instead, I felt like I had to separate myself out and hide to implement wellness. And I still feel like that 30 years later. It's just getting more and more of a controlled system. And that's I think that's my next question is, how, aside from the politics and how we got started, germ theory versus terrain theory, the politics, why do you believe the masses of people are so afraid to let go of this fear-based narrative and look at how to heal the body through healthy measures and wellness?
Well, honestly, I love that question and I don't have an answer. Actually, yesterday I've been trying to find this documentary about the germ theory versus the terrain theory, and I couldn't find it. And then I'm like, why would we even, like, are we censored? Even in germ versus terrain theory, which is like a basic theory about like the spread of disease. And why could a topic like that be, why could a topic like that be hidden? Does that contain does that contain like secret information or harmful information? That's where it gets really weird.
It gets really weird. And, I think in this last 10 months, I have learned more than I have in my entire lifetime. Because initially, when this corona came out, I was confused. I didn't understand the mass. It didn't make scientific sense to me. And I just posed questions on social media and was shredded and shamed, and even by people I went to nursing school with. And so I started researching, and then when it came down to the terrain theory versus germ theory and Louis Pasteur, and it seemed like this could crumble the whole system.
Oh.
Once you understand we've been functioning on the wrong science. And I heard a podcast with Dr. Cowan, who was explaining that if you understand the terrain theory, everything we've been doing up until this point, especially with the pharmaceutical industry, has been wrong. And
only, the fact that it seems to be censored is only empowering the theory that it might be true and that we might have been doing it wrong. Like, why
yes.
otherwise censor it, right?
And why otherwise censor it and censor every single thing promoting health and wellness? And when I really thought about it, I think about how much we are poisoning our Mother Earth. And we are Mother Earth. We are from her, and we're poisoning ourselves. We're poisoning our food system, the water system. And it just made such perfect sense that if we're poisoning the system, it's going to get sick. And another question is, when there are simple vitamins like vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, simple things to boost your health and wellness, have been censored as well, or you can't talk about them. Or I know physicians that I'm friends with have gotten letters saying, if you post this on your website, we will deplatform you.
Yep. It's that bad, right? Like, I could notice that during my med school, vitamins and minerals and supplements, basically, what we always learned is that these are not scientifically proven, and it might be dangerous to prescribe because people can OD on it, and they can get an imbalance because they take too much supplements.
Right.
It's like reverse psychology, right?
And then if we look at, and this is what keeps this cognitive dissonance within me, it keeps, I get so confused, because when you look around the United States right now, 1 out of 2 people adults has a chronic medical disease. Third leading cause of death in the United States is medical error. And that's the ones that are reported, so I'm sure it's much higher. We look at 1 out of 2 of our children has a chronic medical disease. 1 out of 33, I think, kids have autism. It's predicted by 2030, 80% of our boys will have autism. Something is wrong, and it seems like we're just as this mass putting our heads down and saying, let's just keep the course and then let's add a vaccine. So that fear-based narrative, and I've talked to some people about that, and it's like they don't want to give that up. Like that, 200,000 Americans have died, and we're not looking at the actual numbers. Everything's just right there. Is it just fear is a powerful drug, do you think?
It sure is. It sure is. And at the same time, I believe that looking from a somewhat higher consciousness level, everything that's happening right now, so even the perpetuating cycle of fear, it's necessary. It's necessary to bring all the low frequency stuff to the surface, to bring all shame, blame, fear, guilt, pain, disease, everything up. So we get to look at it and transform it in order to shift consciousness.
Yeah, I love that. And I always look for the silver lining. And the analogy I felt with this corona was prehistoric lakes. I used to live near one in Nevada. And every 100 years or so, the bottom would just turn over and come to the top. So you'd have like 2 feet of this murky kind of grassy area that it looked horrible, but that's the health of the lake. And so I'm hoping that when all of this corruption comes to light and we see it and we can see ourselves in truth, that could be a potential way through. And I really hope that you're right, that this is raising our collective consciousness to realize that we are all connected. We don't live in a bubble. There's no safe place right now to go and hide and wait this thing out. We've got to rise up together.
Yeah, and I do not hope, I know, and I trust, and I love to see the unfolding of everything. I mean, everybody has her or his own little or big task to play, and their own lessons to learn. And I 100% believe this is all for the good.
That's what I believe too in my heart. And I think especially for those of us that are aware, when you did that video that I just loved, where you introduced yourself and you said it's about domination, control, and dictatorship.
Yeah.
And when that system collapses, because that's a fear-based system. The medical system is a fear-based system. It's here's your disease, here's your drugs, stay within the system. If that collapses and we're collaborative, we need each other. And I think that this 6 feet away and social distancing has shown us how much we truly need connection and crave that deep, authentic connection.
Yeah, honestly, I believe this is the reason that we live. We live to experience connectedness with other human beings.
That's beautiful. I see that too. And it has really brought out that need to stand up and take action. So for those that are listening, and I have a lot of my patients that listen in my home health practice and physicians and people that I know they know how I'm feeling, but what can you say? What can we say to them that allows that space for them to come in without maybe so much fear or anger, to be able to forge a connection?
So your question is how to find this connection, right?
How to find the connection with those that it seems what's being created now is this division between conspiracy theorists, is what they're calling us, and those that are just indoctrinated into this fear-based narrative.
Yeah, I honestly do not know. My personal story is that my own family, so my brother, sister, mother, and father, they're all in the old narrative. And so I haven't found the way yet. So I'm just walking my path in my truth, and I'm just being love, hoping that, you know, that they stay safe and they stay well, and that they might come to understand, because there's honestly no way back. It's not like, okay, now I get to understand how corrupt the system is. Now I get to see the whole facade of the fear politics that's happening out there. It's not like, oh, I can suddenly now shift and return to my old thinking. That's not possible. It's absolutely a one-way street. So the only thing I can do is patiently hold myself in this new paradigm and wish them well. And you know, in this new paradigm, my experience is that as soon as you step over, you'll find abundant people, so many people that are with you and that are willing to connect. And that's like immediately a way deeper level than the old paradigm can even do.
I love that, and
So
I have noticed that it's kind of when I'm in fear, I find ways to shift that quickly by either connecting with my heart or meditating, or seeing that once I change that vibration of fear to love, then all of a sudden, out of the blue, I'm connecting with people that I have shared ideas, and we can have a dialogue and we can ask questions, and that seems to be what's been shut down most, is that with the censorship, it's black and white. You're wrong, I'm right. There's no debate. There's no ability to ask questions. But when you find somebody that can share that dialogue with you, I feel my vibration just elevate exponentially.
yeah. And I believe that's the only thing we get to do.
That's
Raise our
yeah.
frequency.
And that does feel like a lot of personal power in if and then, and you know, as we've kind of gone down the spiritual path, you realize like that really is the only thing you can do, is
Yeah,
from within.
that's
My
nice. Good. Can you see this? Prosperity is within us.
beautiful, that's on your tea.
Yeah.
And everything is within us.
Yeah.
You know, that all of this shift, you know, and I truly believe, Marije, that people, when they hear truth, or I call it speaking from the heart, and I read that you have a bundle of neurons in your heart, and you have some that innervate the vocal cords. And so you can literally speak from your heart. And I can tell when people are speaking from their heart versus just listing off a bunch of facts. And for me, anyway, that tends to help at least forge some level of connection.
Yeah, I guess you're right. there's the nervous recurrence, and it goes down under the aorta back to the. I wasn't aware of this information, but now that you say it, I can imagine that actually being even in the physical body being a thing. So
Right. And maybe that's part of this new frequency, is that I've heard a lot about 5D and 3D and living in 5D and it being just absolute truth. But I don't believe my heart has the ability to lie. My brain can trick me, my ego can trick me into believing things that are frightening or create a hierarchy. But perhaps this is a way to evolve into that level of just truthfulness. And that truly is, I think, this disease of needing to connect, but being too afraid and showing here's my facade because I'm craving to be seen, but I won't let you see me.
yeah, I appreciate you for explaining it that way. Beautiful.
Thank you. What do you see as some action steps, or just maybe some simple solution in the now for those of us that can see it but do not want to embrace the fear and want to embrace the heart?
Yeah, that's a good one. So I honestly think that is so super individual that here, like taking my advice would already stray away from what is necessary for you. So I think what I can definitely say is learn to tune in with your heart, learn to ask yourself questions and feel what is right for you. And honestly, if you haven't done this, I mean, I haven't done this until I was 29, 28, something like that. I'm now 33. So it is a practice. And the continuing practice that we get to do is how can I love myself more? How can I take better care of myself? How can I show up for myself better? And that every day. So there's not one answer. I mean, for some people, it can mean you leave your job, you leave your family, you leave your house, you leave your friends. That might be part of your journey. And it might be super, super challenging and hard and sad to do these things. But if you feel in your heart that you're not in the right place and that you're not being seen and loved and supported for who you really are right now, then you might need to take these steps. And I can absolutely promise you, taking the steps will only bring you more prosperity, bring you more well-being. Because the path of your heart is absolutely 100% without a doubt the most beautiful and rewarding path there is, even though it's not always easy, and it's definitely not what is expected of you.
That's very, very true. And I found that through my experience in the healthcare industry, I start kind of at that grassroots and I try to show people the power within and to create sovereignty over their body, so that there is no God. The way I see it, there's no God above you. We are all godding everything, the trees, the flowers, the sun, the sky. We're godding in our own way, in our own unique way. So once you can understand, like tap into the heart, and those questions that you ask the heart, or the guidance you get from the heart, comes from deep, deep within. You allow it to come forward, and then once you know, it's that phase of implementation. So I think that's where we can get stuck, because that can be very frightening. Like for you, that must have been very frightening to say, I quit, I'm walking away from this life that I knew or the system. What I was going to ask you too, when you were young, did you always want to be a physician, and what drew you to that aspect of the healing arts?
Oh, I appreciate you for that question. So yeah, as a kid, I always wanted to help. And first I wanted to become a veterinarian. And then I found out that we consider human beings more important than animals. So then I thought, okay, well, then I'm going to be a doctor. So I just wanted to help. It's really from the drive to help. And so I really went into the system. I went all the way into the system, and everything that I learned, I took for granted. Like, this is the best way. This is how we do things best. That's really how I was until I met Samantha Lotus. She's absolutely worth interviewing. And I met her, actually, she's from Canada, but I met her in Amsterdam, and she changed my life. She basically opened up my way of thinking. And it took like 2 years and many, many fights. She cured herself from leukemia. So that's like a form of blood cancer. And I could not believe that. I was so scared that she was going to die, and she cured herself. So I think she completely helped me like see life in a different way. And since then, my study was a little bit more difficult, because knowing that, or being aware of this narrative to be very limited, knowing that there's a whole world out there about natural health and about consciousness and about how we create our reality, it gets a little bit more difficult to stay in the system. But I was still doing like my residencies.
Yes.
And then it started to become a little bit more difficult, but I stayed until the end. And when I finished, a few months after, I started to become nauseous from prescribing medications. So
And tell people a little bit about that, because I call that the body compass. When my body gives me a reaction that tells me I'm completely out of alignment with my mission or my values or my heart. So can you explain that a little bit more, that for people that don't understand what that means?
yeah, I think I can. I will give it a try. So yeah, as we learn to listen to our bodies are talking to us all the time, like all the time. And sickness or just symptoms are always a message, always. Like there's zero complaints or symptoms that are not a message. Even breaking your leg is holds a message for you. And actually, by listening to that message, we come to the right path that is the right path for us. So in my case, I knew all this, and I wasn't completely like following up with the new knowing that I had. I was still holding on to, I've done 12 years of university studies to get where I came. And I just finished. I was just in the end phase of finishing all that. So yeah, I know all that, but I'm not completely gonna listen to it. And my body was just, I was just physically unwell. And even then in the beginning, I was like, okay, I must have eaten something wrong.
Oh, yeah. The brain kind of tries to explain it.
Exactly. And that happened a few times. And then I'm like, well, it is interesting that it keeps happening right after I do this, like half an hour prescribing, nonstop prescribing. And like the last few days before I made my video that went viral, like in Dutch a year ago, right before that, I was really finding myself in the toilet.
Oh, wow.
waiting for vomit to come out. So it was super clear.
That's such a wonderful analogy, because I think the body gives us very clear symbols. The trick is not to try to explain it away with the brain, or then you start to look at, well, let me fix my stomach from the external. With everything, we have to look at the root.
Yes.
We ask why. And I'm really curious. I sort of had maybe a Pollyanna idea that this medical system was only in the United States, like it is, and it was just getting worse. But elsewhere around the world, it was getting better, or maybe some European countries had it better. Or is it similar to the allopathic medical system in the Netherlands, where it's symptom, drug?
It's a little bit similar. I would say the Netherlands, our system is somewhat milder, in the sense that we have general practitioners, and if you are sick, you go to the general practitioners, and we try to help people with advice. But the next logical step is to give drugs, or like send them to the hospital for surgery or something like that. So yeah, it is better. Like, we don't prescribe that many medicine.
Yeah.
But I would say there is a lot of space for still to make it better.
Yes, I truly believe that. And what I've seen with connecting with your heart, or what I've seen with whatever you want to call what we're doing, the healing arts, or it's a genuine passion of mine to see people get better. I see myself as a conduit, and that this sort of pure heart, when it's clean, and when I've gotten rid of all of the noise of programming and domestication and parent voices, and I can listen from within, I do get very clear messages about the healing for another person, so that they take ownership of their health and wellness. And that's when we change. We ignite our inner healer. It's not, okay, so now Robin's healing me, and now she's here and I'm down here, and I always need her to help with my healing. And I think when we look at maybe this whole global energy, I always try to look at the simplest common denominator. And if someone's selling you fear, and look at what's behind that. What's their motivation? What's their intention? Versus when someone's trying to sell you, tap into your own power. I think the simplest solution of, if you are awakening to questions, or the cognitive dissonance, like this narrative isn't sitting well with you, the question to ask one another is this creating more fear, or is this creating sovereignty and love and connection to yourself and connection to others? And through all of it, and if the doctor's saying something that doesn't resonate, or they're just looking at you like a number. And again, I truly believe physicians and all of you guys have the best interest and the best intention. It's just we're working in a system that's completely broken, and it's just making us sick.
Yes.
Do you see ways of igniting I guess maybe a better question is, how do you see ways of igniting that inner healer, whether you're buying into the narrative or not, whatever you believe? How do we boost that wellness and the connection to ourselves?
I have many ways. I'm just very curious to hear what you would like, what would come up for you with this question.
This is, I'm 52, almost 52.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
And
wow.
this has been my quest from, it's this moment I can remember, my earliest memory, as I always wanted to understand more and what made people do the things they did, and nature. And I was so connected to nature. I grew up on a big ranch in Nevada. And I also wanted to be a veterinarian. I just loved healing animals. I didn't see a hierarchy. I saw them as the same as us, and same with people. And so it was that ego came in, and I will help you. I will heal you. I'm the healer. And I saw how that backfired, and I felt so responsible if somebody got well, and then I would feel so egoic if they got better or worse, or and so I was tied into it, and I saw this wasn't working. And once I just started deeply listening, this is usually in mental health, and I worked in locked psychiatric hospitals, and my patients did so well on my caseload, and I saw that I saw them, beginning, middle, and end. I saw them, and I listened, and that's it. So anything after that, I think we're all mirrors to one another. And and again, this is what circles back to our belief about how connection is so important. So when you can deeply connect with another, it can heal everything. You get to see yourself more authentically. That person who's living in their authenticity, warts and all, gives you permission to come in authentically. And I think that is the healing. And then we get to, use our modalities, plant tinctures and plant medicines. And, I'm not completely against prescriptions. There are times in the acute phase, I always say, that they are possible and that they can be very useful, but very short term and just in the acute. So kind of a long-winded answer to that, but I guess the long and the short of it is seeing one another.
It was just a complete pleasure to listen to you. I imagine you're like, everything that's coming from you in this area is coming straight from your, like, the deepest part of your heart.
And that's been the journey.
Yeah.
To see how programmed I was. I turned my TV off about 13 years ago when my son was born. And I think about 10 years after that, I saw how programmed I was. And now 3 years later, it's still the untangling what my belief system was, and trying to get around what we feel like or what we believe is the sky is blue and viruses cause illness. It's difficult to go past that.
I would say that might be the main tip. Like the first, the one that I gave was like, follow your heart and make the decisions that are aligned with your true authentic self. But like turning off the TV, that's essential. That's
Yes.
like, with that TV streaming and programming you all the time, it's gonna be a tough one to get like to your core.
I think it's almost impossible, because that has been what has baffled me. Friends of mine and people that have been on that spiritual path with me are not able to have a dialogue with me. And that's been baffling. And the only conclusion I've just come to, and it's not a conclusion, but it's the programming of the television.
Yeah, my husband, I'm a little bit away from my husband right now, because even like our paradigms are apart. But my husband is from the US, And I've been there for, I would say, half year or something. And then the TV is always screaming in your face, even in restaurants, even in shopping malls, everywhere. The commercials are like screaming at you. And
Yes.
even in the gym. And they even have, you guys even have commercials about medication and drugs, right?
70% of advertising dollars are spent on prescription medications.
Yeah. Okay, we don't have that.
Oh.
So we have a way milder version of your medical system and the commercials, but that's intense, right?
It's intense. And as a home health nurse, when I go into my patient's house, I'd say 90% has the television on 24/7. They don't even notice that it's on. And I always have to say, can you please turn off the TV? I can't hear you, or, I can't hear through my stethoscope. But I think that something underneath that, I don't want to say subliminal advertising. I used to want to be a commercial artist till I realized how dark it was. But there's a lot. This was in the 80s when I was in college, and probably the level of subliminal advertisement or control has probably increased since then.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. Then, it makes it even more respectable for people like yourself to untangle from that and really, really align with who you truly are and what your true nature is.
That's it. And I think when we're looking at your true nature, and what I've seen within myself is when I'm connected to my worthiness, to my value as a human, just because I'm breathing, I don't have to do anything or prove anything. I'm a really horrible consumer, and I'm not easily controlled anymore. So I think there's some fear in that for all of us waking up to our own power. Maybe fear from those that are in control.
Yeah. I would say that we are right now looking in the world at the last crumblings of the old paradigms. I mean, it is definitely panicking mode right now, because
Yes.
why otherwise all the crazy things happening, right? Why all these regulations that don't make sense? Why all the censorship? Why all these propaganda everywhere? Why all these, the vaccine, the implementing of the vaccine? What is it actually like in the US? Do you know?
I do know when back in March with the vaccination, a poll said about 60% wanted to take it straight away. I think now it's down to 35-40% are in agreement. I have a lot of people asking me, even, what do you think about the flu shot? And what do you think about the vaccine? And I'm getting a lot more question. I think people are realizing, like, I think we need some more answers about this before it goes in my body and never comes out. Can you speak to those that are kind of questioning the vaccine and whether it's going to solve the pandemic, and that's our solution for everything?
Yeah, I will definitely not take it, and it is fabricated way too soon, and so it cannot be tested. We don't even know if other vaccines, like from the past, like the flu, if they are effective. We don't know. Actually, the flu vaccine, so that's a vaccine that we are experienced with. If you look at tests for effectiveness, it shows that it is not effective. So, and from there, now we bring in a vaccine that is in a very, very disorganized situation, fabric way too fast with a lot of question marks about safety, effectiveness, and also like just look at the financial tracking and see, just look at who is benefiting from this, and then see what is the history saying about these institutions. What has happened in the past concerning these institutes that are profiting from us taking the vaccine? What has been their objective in the past? This makes you learn that it might not be a good idea. And if we look from a medical standpoint, my most recent information has led me to think that it might be very unhealthy, especially for the reproductivity. What is the other word for that?
Reproductivity.
Fertility.
Fertility.
Yeah, fertility. It might be harmful for fertility. So obviously everybody has to decide for themselves and be willing to take the to pay the price. So you either pay the price of, in the Netherlands, if you don't take it, you are not allowed to some like festivals or gatherings.
Oh.
So you have to be willing to pay that price. And if you do take it, you have to be willing to take the risks of the vaccine not being tested properly, or maybe being seriously harmful for your system.
Yes.
And your fertility, as it looks like.
And what I've read, and maybe you can help speak to this, is that we've never had an RNA vaccine before. We've been trying for 17 years. We tested it on ferrets. Ferrets did fine when they were injected with the vaccine, but when they were reintroduced to a wild virus, almost all of them died. So I think what people are also not aware of is that there has been no test with a vaccine against a placebo. So that's the efficacy. In 1986, our president at the time, Ronald Reagan, signed a indemnification that pharmaceutical companies were not liable for any damages caused to your health ever. So
that's so interesting, right? In the Netherlands as well.
And part of that agreement was they were supposed to every 2 years test for safety. They've not done it one time, and no one's holding them accountable. And know that these top level CEOs of these pharmaceutical companies are convicted felons. They have been convicted and tried in a court of law of a felony. That is who is making your vaccinations. Fauci owns half a patent in this corona vaccination. All these people that are promoting it, this is what I want people to at least understand, the motivation behind it. I'm not making any money doing this podcast. I'm not making any money telling you to eat broccoli. I don't get a kickback when you buy broccoli at the store and promote your own wellness. I do it from a pure place. I do it from a pure heart. And if that's the only question you ask, at least just ask, what's the motivation behind this? I want to ask just kind of more of a esoteric, spiritual way to close, from going into this new energy, going into this new frequency that we're all creating. What do you see as the ways for us to expand that connection from within?
Your only task basically is to raise your frequency. So that's basically it. You have to focus on what feels good for you and go for it, and not go for it half-assed. Go for it all the way. All the way. Go for it 100% for what feels good. All your attention, you focus on what feels good. So you do meditation, you do yoga, you do movement, you eat well, you rest well, you sleep well, you connect with people that are nurturing you, that are giving you a safe feeling. All these things. Yes, please cuddle. Yes, because when you touch somebody, you're exchanging bacteria and viruses, and your body can adapt, is basically giving its getting its training into adapting to other people. So if you
Yes.
have been without contact for a while, your immune system will go down. You will get less adaptable. And, even if the coronavirus might have a real comeback, if you have been out of connection, if you have been out of touching people, you are weaker when corona comes back. So please touch each other, kiss each other, hug each other, make love with each other. It's super important that we are human beings.
Love that. And that's, again, like, just talking to you, I feel like my vibration is lifted, my whole being is raised, because it makes me feel healthy and from the heart. And when I have been in fear, I do want to mention this really quickly, that was so helpful for me, is when I was in fear, I looked at what is triggering me. And it was this pollution. And so I had to look at myself. Where am I polluting myself? And really dive deep into those questions. What was it? My thoughts? Am I saying things to myself that are cruel or toxic? Who do I have surrounding me in my life? Are they toxic, or do they uplift me? All of that, the music I'm listening to, what am I doing with my son? What am I eating? Really focusing on that. What am I drinking? Is it in excess, or is it in alignment with my soul? And it really happened quickly once I just simply asked the question. They just fell away. Anything that seemed toxic, or I think that's the power when you are in your truth and when you are in alignment. Everything else simply falls away effortlessly.
Yeah, I love what you said right there. And what came up for me is when you said that being afraid of, in your case, pollution or whatever it is not it's not bad. It's not like, oh, I'm a bad person, I feel fear. No, you're an amazing person who has the opportunity to grow even more from experiencing an unpleasant feeling. So yeah, congratulate yourself when you feel afraid, when you feel angry, when you feel frustrated. It's all an opportunity for growth. So
that's beautiful to say that, because and that could be the missing piece, because anytime you're judging yourself, or you're in that toxic state within yourself, like, oh, I shouldn't be in fear, I've done all this work. No, welcome the fear, welcome that moment, and learn from it. That's all it is. It's just a lesson.
you're such a beautiful reflection of me.
It feels wonderful. Oh, this has been the most powerful hour I think I've spent in a long time. And I so, from my heart, appreciate you. You have inspired me to be more brave and to speak my truth, even when I'm tired, even when I think to myself, Robin, please just don't say anything to this person. I still say it from my heart, and I say it in love. And it is, I believe, awakening within myself that truth. And again, with everything that we've talked about here, it's go inward. Let's go inward and find that heart and listen.
Amen, sister.
Amen to you, sister. Well, thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending this hour with me and my audience. And I see you as a pure heart, and I see you helping to bring in this new frequency. And I believe that's a misnomer in the spiritual community. I truly believe we can help one another without ego. And that is my truth. So thank you, Marije Berkelaar. You are a beautiful, wonderful person.
I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too. Namaste.
Namaste.